All right. So in yesterday's class, we discussed up to skeletal muscle relaxants, in which we discussed about succinylcholine and the effects of succinylcholine. The last part that I discussed was about malignant hypothermia and how malignant hypothermia can be life-threatening, wherein you can give IV dantrolene to save the patient. Now, coming to directly acting muscle relaxants. So the previous ones were all NMJ blockers. One way or the other, they were acting on this neuromuscular blockage or neuromuscular junction, essentially, both competitively by either depolarizing or by non-depolarizing. Either way. Now we'll talk about drugs that are acting directly on the muscle. Okay, the drug that comes into picture here is dantrolene itself. Dantrolene will enter into your cell and it will inhibit the production or it will inhibit the secretion of calcium from sarcoplasmic reticulum. If calcium is not secreted or calcium is not released from sarcoplasmic reticulum inside the muscle, that muscle will not be able to contract. Normally, whenever muscle contraction occurs, you know that a little bit of calcium will enter from serum or from the blood into the muscle, and that sparks or that triggers more calcium to be released from sarcoplasmic reticulum. As a result, all of this extra amount of calcium will cause your muscle to contract. Okay, that is how muscle contraction will occur. I'm not going into the details of all the processes, but that is how generally muscles will contract, specifically skeletal muscles. In this scenario, once you give dantrolene, it will enter inside the cell. It will inhibit calcium release. Once again, calcium release from सार्कोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम. ठीक है, या एसआर रेटिकुलम भी बोलते हैं उसको. And as a result, what will happen is contraction does not occur and ultimately the muscle will be able to relax. Okay, if contraction is not occurring, obviously the muscle will be relaxed. Okay, that is another way in which you can cause skeletal muscle relaxation. Now, adverse effects that can occur with dantrolene, because it does cross your CNS, it will have some CNS effects, drowsiness, dizziness, hepatotoxicity can occur with dantrolene. Very, very important side effect. But the thing is that whenever you are whenever you are giving dantrolene, it might not become very apparent till the patient actually has hepatotoxicity. So if you are giving the patient dantrolene, perform regular LFTs. Okay? If you perform regularly the LFTs regularly, you will be able to monitor their liver function and you will be able to find hepatotoxicity if it is occurring very early, and you can immediately stop the drug or change the drug to some other thing, some other drug. You can use this in multiple sclerosis, hemiplegia, paraplegia, spinal injury, cerebral palsy. ये पूरे conditions में आप दे सकते हैं. Cerebral palsy is impairment of muscle coordination. This is due to a birth defect. Generally, infancy में या birth के time पे there is damage to the brain that is causing impairment in muscle coordination. Muscles will not be able to coordinate properly. That condition is called cerebral palsy. Then we have the third class, which is centrally acting muscle relaxants. इसमें आता your diazepam, lorazepam, essentially your benzodiazepines. There are others as well, diazepam and BZDs, benzodiazepines, the whole class itself. Benzodiazepines की, you can give baclofen, you can give tizanidine. Certain scenarios में अलग अलग drugs देते. Essentially what this does is it will depress spinal postsynaptic reflexes. So from your spinal cord, the motor reflex that is going to your muscle. Now whenever you want to move your muscle, let us suppose there is a thought coming into your brain that you want to move your muscle. That thought essentially will be the sensory stimulus, right? That sensory stimulus reaches your brain, and once it is reaching your brain, okay, I want to contract my arm, or I want to contract I want to flex my let's suppose forearm muscles, or I want to move my forearm muscles. That is your thought. You are going to pick something up. Let's suppose you are picking a pen or something. Immediately what will happen is sensory signal is sent to your brain, which will in turn generate a motor signal, and as a result what will happen is it will come to your spinal cord, and from the spinal cord it is reaching your effector muscle. The part that is coming down will be the motor impulse. Here these drugs which are centrally acting, they will directly enter your CNS and they will depress your spinal postsynaptic reflexes. So the what do you call, the reflexes that are generated after the this thing, what do you call, action potential crosses your spinal cord. So somewhere near your ganglia, what it will do, now there are several different mechanisms in which these work, but essentially what they will do is they will stop the motor reflex that is coming out of your spinal cord. As a result, there will be no stimulus to the this thing, what do you call, to the muscle. The effector muscle will have no stimulus altogether, and it will ultimately depress muscle tone. That is the way through which these work. These will mechanism of action, depress spinal postsynaptic reflex. So in this reflexes, I mean the motor reflexes that are coming, or the motor stimuli that are coming out of your spinal cord. Decrease in muscle tone. If muscle tone is very low, your muscle will not be able to contract and it will not be able to move. Okay. If there is no stimulus, let us suppose the stimulus is coming from acetylcholine. That acetylcholine, it is coming into picture only when that motor neuron is being stimulated. Just before the NMJ, that motor neuron is being stimulated. If that NMJ does not receive any stimulus, if you're stopping the stimulus at the level of the spinal cord, obviously you cannot get any stimulus, and hence, movement will not occur, or essentially the muscle will relax. Now, there are several ways through which you can achieve this depression of spinal postsynaptic reflex. One is by using diazepam or benzodiazepines. So, ये क्या करते हैं? Um, अच्छा, do you guys have working idea of this thing, action potential? What is action potential and how it is generated? What are the processes involved in action potential? The phases of action potential essentially: depolarization, repolarization, hyperpolarization, refractory period, and again depolarization. ये पढ़े थे लास्ट ईयर या हवा में उड़ गया? याद है कुछ? नो? अच्छा, do one thing, um, because this is actually quite important. We'll have a whole chapter of you'll have a whole class of benzodiazepines altogether. In that you will definitely need to know about action potential. A small part of that is coming in this as well, because those drugs, as I told you, benzodiazepine is used in several different drugs. You will see them in antipsychotics, you will see them in skeletal muscle relaxants, you will see them sometimes in anesthetics, pre-anesthetic drugs specifically. You'll see them in several places. So it is very important that you know how they work, and for you to understand how they work, you need to know how action potential works. What is depolarization, polarization, repolarization, hyperpolarization, and refractory period? These four stages of action potential कैसा होते, क्या cycle में होते, more importantly what kind of this thing, what kind of molecules, essentially what kind of ions are moving across the membrane. When does sodium and potassium move in, when does chlorine move in, when does sodium and potassium move out, and when does chlorine move out? That is very important for you to know. When you understand that, then it will be easier for you to understand how these drugs work. ठीक है? So do one thing, आज एक्शन पोटेंशियल पढ़ो एक बार. ठीक है? इट इज, आई एम श्योर आप लोगों को लास्ट ईयर नर्व कंडक्शन में पढ़ाए होंगे. इट विल बी नर्व कंडक्शन. ठीक है? ओपन योर फिजियोलॉजी बुक, look up nerve conduction, or even if you don't open your physiology book, you can just type in Google nerve conduction, how it occurs, and the ions that are responsible for nerve conduction, the saltatory movement of action potential, how a potential is generated, threshold potential kya hai, how it is reaching your axon hillock, how it is getting accumulated there, and what kind of trigger it is causing. The trigger will be your action potential, which will eventually go to your the terminal part of your axon, and it will stimulate the neurotransmitter present there, wherein the action potential can be propagated to the next neuron. Synapse ke across neurotransmitter jata, and it will stimulate the next neuron, and action potential continues. यहाँ पर I'll tell you one thing though. Benzodiazepines, essentially what they will do is they will cause repolarization of the membrane. Now, if you understand action potential, it will be easier for you to know this. That is why I told you. Benzodiazepines in general and diazepam will be a GABA agonist. What it will do is it will stimulate GABA receptor, specifically GABA B receptor. ठीक है, GABA receptor को stimulate करे तो there will be a lot of repolarization, and immediately a lot of chlorine channels will open. As a result, what will happen is the complete part of that neuron will undergo repolarization, and action potential will be stopped. That is one way wherein you can depress spinal synaptic reflex. या फिर आप tizanidine यूज कर सकते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल tizanidine क्या करता, दिस इज वेरी सिमिलर टू क्लोनिडीन. अच्छा, यू आप लोगों को एंटी हाइपरटेंसिव नहीं पढ़ा है ना. ओके, क्लोनिडीन इज अ सेंट्रली एक्टिंग अल्फा टू अगोनिस्ट. अल्फा टू रिसेप्टर्स, अल्फा एड्रीनर्जिक रिसेप्टर्स जो रहते हैं ना, इससे पहले जब मैं कोलिनर्जिक रिसेप्टर्स के बारे में पढ़ाया था, आई टोल्ड यू, आई थिंक ड्यूरिंग आस्थमा और एंटी एस्थमेटिक ड्रग्स, आई टोल्ड यू adrenergic receptors रहते हैं, cholinergic receptors रहते हैं. Adrenergic receptors will conform with adrenaline. Essentially, they will respond to adrenaline, wherein you have two types, alpha and beta. Alpha itself will have alpha 1, alpha 2. Beta will have three types, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. Alpha 2 receptors are present in your CNS. ठीक है. What these will do is they will ultimately decrease your BP. Let me put it this way. Okay. Whenever alpha 2 receptors are stimulated, the final result will be that your BP will go down. यहाँ पर tizanidine is very similar to that alpha 2 agonist. It will act as a central alpha 2 agonist, and because of which what will happen is it will cause presynaptic inhibition. This increases presynaptic inhibition. Presynaptic inhibition of the motor neuron. अच्छा, what is presynaptic inhibition? In a synapse, अपन लोग जब कोलिनर्जिक ड्रग्स के बारे में पढ़ रहे थे, इफ यू रिमेंबर, आई टोल्ड यू, सपोजिंग दिस इज न्यूरॉन 1 and this is neuron 2, or the motor end plate or whatever it is, ganglia है, जहाँ पर आपके निकोटिनिक रिसेप्टर्स है या कोलिनर्जिक रिसेप्टर्स essentially, and acetylcholine is coming out here, and it is stimulating this receptor. At that time, I told you some molecules of acetylcholine can go back and they cause presynaptic inhibition. यहाँ पर what they will do is presynaptic neuron. So this is the synapse, right? The empty space in between two neurons will be the synapse when neurotransmitters are moving around and causing action potential to jump. This will be your presynaptic neuron. This will be your postsynaptic neuron. Okay? Presynaptic inhibition means inhibiting this neuron. Essentially, you're inhibiting the action potential of the presynaptic neuron, and you're inhibiting the stimulus from presynaptic neuron, because of which neurotransmitters are not released in the synapse. I'll repeat once again. Presynaptic inhibition का मतलब ये है कि the neurotransmitters that are being released or the drug that you are giving, for example, यहाँ पर tizanidine there है, let us suppose this is the drug. Molecules of T are coming here like this, and they are working on this presynaptic neuron. And यहाँ पर instead of postsynaptic neuron, imagine you have a muscle here. ठीक है, imagine this is a muscle. ठीक है, NMJ है ये, motor end plate पे stimulate कर रहे हैं. What these drugs will do is they will stop the transmission from presynaptic neuron. As a result, the motor stimulus that is coming from this motor neuron, from this presynaptic motor neuron, that will stop. If that stimulus is stopping, you will not have any acetylcholine molecules released, and as a result, that muscle will not be able to contract. Okay. Specifically, tizanidine is used in muscle spasms. Okay. It is also used in a condition called ALS. Ever heard of ALS? A couple of years ago, there was something called an ice bucket challenge that was going about. People were throwing a bucket full of ice cold water on top of them in order to raise money for ALS patients. Quote unquote, a lot of trend. People were throwing ice water on each other. Uh, it is for a disease called ALS. It's actually a disorder. It's called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Okay, neurological disorder. आप tizanidine multiple sclerosis में use कर सकते हैं. You can use it in stroke as well. Stroke में जब spasticity होती है muscles की, muscles will start spasming. In some patients, whenever they have stroke, they will start having muscle spasms. In that scenario also, you can give tizanidine. So those are centrally acting muscle relaxants. Benzodiazepines, baclofen, both of them are GABA agonists, and tizanidine, that is the alpha 2 agonist. Anyway, all three of them will cause depression of spinal postsynaptic reflexes, because of which muscle tone will be depressed. Now, coming to nursing implication of SMRs, what you need to remember when giving SMRs to patients, skeletal muscle relaxant. First of all, monitor the respiration. Very, very important. Because if skeletal muscle relaxant का dose थोड़ा भी बढ़ गया, there is a chance that it can depress and it can paralyze intercostal muscles. As a result, the patient's respiration will sink down quite a lot. The patient will not be able to breathe and respiratory failure हो सकता. So the first thing that you need to do when patient is on SMRs, monitor their respiratory rate, and if possible, manage their respiratory volumes as well. Then second, if you are using drugs like diazepam, baclofen, if you're using centrally acting muscle relaxants, don't withdraw them abruptly. Okay? They need to be tapered down. You cannot just stop the drug as is. You need to decrease the dose slowly, 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 and then take it off. You cannot just abruptly stop the drug. Okay, it will cause a rebound reaction. Avoid Ask the patient to avoid driving when they are on benzodiazepine or baclofen, and avoid giving CNS depressants with SMRs. Any other CNS depression should not be given with skeletal muscle relaxant. Okay, so that was about skeletal muscle relaxants. I hope you understood this. If you have doubts, if you want me to repeat anything, centrally acting or directly acting or depolarizing agents, non-depolarizing agents, anything in SMRs, please feel free to ask. You can put it in the chat as well if you didn't understand anything. Okay. Now, coming to anesthesia. So before we go into anesthesia and anesthetics, we'll discuss about pre-anesthetic drugs. Pre-anesthetic meds भी बोलते हैं लोगों को, pre-anesthetic drugs भी बोलते हैं. Both of them refer to the same thing. So why are pre-anesthetics given? See, anesthesia is a state in which you are voluntarily inducing temporary loss of consciousness in patient. ठीक है, you are numbing them essentially. यहाँ पर pre anesthetics are drugs that are used before the anesthetic to make sure that the effect of anesthesia is good. ठीक है, and it is very pleasant in the sense that once the patient wakes up from anesthesia, they should not have a lot of problem, and even during the state of anesthesia they should not have problems. That is why you are giving pre-anesthetic drugs. Some goals of giving pre-anesthetic drugs is to decrease anxiety, uh, decrease provide amnesia. The patient, it is preferable if the patient does not remember the operation or what happened in and around the operation, to make anesthesia safer, to reduce anesthetic side effects. Okay. Decrease gastric acidity, and relieve any preoperative pain if the patient has any preoperative pain. In certain conditions, you will also give prokinetic agents so that their gastric gastrointestinal tract is completely empty. Okay, preferably you want that, because even bronchial secretions and all do not occur. So you'll give drugs so that bronchial secretions are also not occurring. Now, Coming to the drugs itself that are given, the first type of drug that is given is sedative or hypnotic drugs. These will sedate the patient. Okay, यहाँ पे सबसे common drugs that are given are BZDs. As I told you, benzodiazepines are used in a lot of different classes. The difference will come in their doses. At one dose, it will act as a skeletal muscle relaxant. At a different dose, it will act as a sedative. At a different dose, it will act as an antipsychotic agent. The dose will differ, but the action will be similar. Okay? The mechanism of action will be similar, and the way it is acting will be the same. Depending on the dose, effect will be different, stronger or weaker. Benzodiazepines are sedatives and hypnotics. Essentially, they will help in decreasing anxiety. ठीक है, anxiolytics कैसा भी देते हैं. You have a different class of anxiolytics, anti-anxiety drugs. It will cause amnesia in the patient. ठीक है. Generally, diazepam 5 to 10 mg देते drug before giving anesthesia. Another advantage of giving sedative or hypnotic drugs or even analgesic drugs, we'll discuss about analgesics in a minute as well. But the advantage of giving these drugs is that the requirement of anesthesia will decrease. See, anesthetic जो drugs रहते हैं, whether you are giving general anesthetic or local anesthetic, I'll mainly be talking about general. But अब general anesthetic, अच्छा, by the way, do you guys know the difference between local and general anesthesia? बहुत important है. What is the difference between local and general anesthesia? Acha, let me put it this way. If you are going to perform a big surgery on a patient, let us suppose you are going to perform a bypass surgery on a patient, will you give a local anesthetic to them or a general anesthetic?
Gentle honesty.
हाँ, तो जनरल एनेस्थेटिक क्या करता? बाय दैट लॉजिक, एज ही टोल्ड, जनरल एनेस्थेटिक देते क्यों? व्हाट विल दैट कॉज?
It causes whole body anesthesia.
Mm. It will cause anesthesia in the whole body. Local anesthetics are local, as the name suggests. It will be targeted to only a small area on your body. General anesthetics will generally numb your whole body. Okay, that is the big difference. Now, sedatives and hypnotics, what they will do is they will decrease the requirement. Essentially, they will decrease the dosage that is required for anesthesia, and anesthesia will be induced quicker as well. If you give a pre-anesthetic drug such as a sedative, the patient will already go into a state of drowsiness, and you will not have to give a lot of dose of anesthesia for them to be anesthetized. ठीक है, कम डोज पे भी ज़्यादा देर तक anesthetized रह सकते, as long as the dose of the sedative is being maintained in their body. That is a big advantage. ठीक है, because anesthetic themselves will have a lot of side effects, some very very serious side effects as well sometimes, so and serious risks associated with them. So that is why if you are able to give an analgesic drug or a sedative drug, it will be very helpful. Then there is antihistamines. Antihistamine specifically I'm telling about H1 blockers. ठीक है, जो एंटीकोलिनर्जिक ड्रग्स रहते हैं वो. So these antihistamines, H1 blockers, they will cause H1 blockers. आप लोगों को पढ़ाया नहीं है, but antihistamines, it is not there in your portion. But H1 blockers are essentially anticholinergics. They will also be classified under a type of anticholinergics. They will stop the function of acetylcholine. You have drugs like promethazine in this. Promethazine, diphenhydramine, वो पूरे इसमें ही आते. The effect will be that the patient will be sedated. The patient will have an antiemetic effect. This drug will have an antiemetic effect. One second. Yeah, it'll have an antiemetic and an anticholinergic effect. Anticholinergic effect is इसलिए important है क्योंकि let us suppose you are giving an irritant anesthesia, or you whatever anesthetic drug that you are using, let us suppose it is irritant in nature, irritant to the mucous membrane in your body. Sometimes what happens is this irritant anesthetic can induce salivation or it can induce respiratory secretion. And these respiratory secretions, bronchosecretions or any other secretions that are coming out of your body, these might reach trachea. So there are two consequences that can happen. Let us suppose there is an irritant anesthetic that is irritating mucous membrane. Okay, irritant anesthetic. This fellow is inducing salivation because it is, irritating your mucous membrane, and it might even induce respiratory secretions. As a result, what will happen is these fellows will start reaching the trachea and sometimes the lung as well. Now on trachea, from trachea it can reach your larynx. ठीक है, larynx में अगर पहुंचा ये respiratory secretions, there is a chance excessive amount of respiratory secretion, if a lot of it is reaching your larynx, it can cause a laryngospasm, spasm in your larynx. First thing. Second, if it is reaching your lungs, a lot of respiratory secretions, if they start accumulating in your lungs, if they start being secreted in the lungs, they can lead to pneumonia. Specifically, it will cause aspiration pneumonia, both of which are bad. ठीक है, especially during the surgery you do not want the patient to undergo spasms. Let's suppose you have a scalpel and you're about to tear open the patient's thoracic area, and if the patient starts jumping around because of a laryngospasm, it will be problematic. Okay, you might nick a nerve or something like that, which will be again a big headache. या फिर the patient might have aspiration pneumonia. That is why anticholinergics are very helpful. You can give any other anticholinergic such as atropine as well, or you can give drugs like antihistamines, H1 blockers, promethazine or diphenhydramine. In some patients, antiemetics are also given, direct antiemetics, domperidone, ondansetron, metoclopramide, ये पूरे दे सकते हैं आप. Atropine या anticholinergics देने का biggest advantage is that it will reduce secretions, not just respiratory secretions, it will decrease digestive secretions as well, and it will prevent bradycardia and this thing from happening. It will prevent bradycardia and laryngospasm from happening. अगर आपको if you don't want to use atropine because again it can have problems, you can use glycopyrrolate. Glycopyrrolate is better than atropine. It will last longer. It will have it is better at decreasing the bodily secretion, and it is likely to cause tachycardia. It will not less likely to cause tachycardia or less likely to cause arrhythmia in general when compared to atropine. Atropine can cause that arrhythmias and all. ठीक है, then you will give one drug to decrease acidity. Whenever you are performing surgery, general anesthesia itself may cause vomiting. Okay? And let us suppose if the patient has acid in their stomach, if they have not eaten anything, and you're performing a surgery. As a result, what will happen is if they start vomiting, that puts a that puts the patient at a very high risk of aspiration pneumonia and damaging their lungs. Okay? Think of it this way: they have a lot of acid in their stomach, and whenever a general anesthetic is given, that itself is inducing vomiting. The general anesthesia is inducing vomiting. If the patient starts vomiting on an empty stomach, obviously the acid present in your stomach will start refluxing out. It will start coming out. As a result, what will happen is it will start damaging your esophagus. If it reaches your lungs, it can damage your lungs as well. It will damage your respiratory tract, especially if it is aspirated. तो आप ये पूरा अवॉइड करने के लिए H2 ब्लॉकर्स यूज कर सकते हैं. Ranitidine, cimetidine, famotidine, वो पूरे H2 blockers. So H1 blockers can be used as anticholinergics. H2 blockers can be used in this scenario. Generally H2 blockers जो है you give it to the patient one night before the surgery. ठीक है, the exact night before the surgery. Let us suppose the patient is having a surgery at 10 o'clock in the morning today. You will preferably give the drug H2 blocker yesterday evening. ठीक है, yesterday night or yesterday evening आप ये drug दे दें so that it will have enough time to function. ठीक है. Finally, you can give a prokinetic agent such as metoclopramide ranitidine मिला के भी दे सकते हैं आप, so that GI secretions are thrown down towards the intestine. Sometimes opioids are also given, morphine, pethidine. They will decrease anxiety and apprehension. Some people will not want to go for the surgery even if they need it. तो वो सिनारियो में morphine, pethidine बहुत अच्छा काम करते हैं, and they will give a general analgesia effect as well, because of which you can decrease the anesthetic dose. Analgesia will also cause drowsiness to a certain degree, because of which you can decrease the dose of the anesthetic. Yeah, they will depress your respiration, may cause hypertension. Another big problem with opioids is that opioids like morphine and pethidine, it will cause constipation. Post-operative constipation is very common. ठीक है, and it will delay the recovery from anesthesia. It will take a longer time for the patient who is on opioid analgesics for them to recover from anesthesia. ठीक है, normally if a patient is recovering from anesthesia in 1 day or 24 hours after the surgery is performed, if the patient, that same patient is on opioids, it might take a few hours more. ठीक है, so there is that disadvantage. So those are all different types of pre